There is a very famous question in the halachic world brought by the Beit Yosef. He asks, why do we celebrate Chanuka for 8 days? It should be 7 days, surely. Why? Well, we know that the miracle of Chanuka lasted for 8 days. It was the veil of oil, famously, that was the last pure veil of oil in the whole Beit HaMikdash after the war. And it lasted miraculously for 8 days instead of 1. So we celebrate Chanuka for 8 days. But we're celebrating a miracle, right? If you think about it, the first day was not miraculous. It just wasn't. We had enough oil for that day. So how was there any miracle going on the first day? And if there wasn't, then why are we celebrating it for 8 days? Now, I've heard also asked, maybe it's because of the halachic principle of Sfeika de Yoma, which means in Chutz La'aretz, we sometimes keep an extra day of Yom Tov because we're not sure exactly when it fell out. That's the reason why we keep, say, 2 days of Pesach and 2 days of Shavuot and 2 days of Sukkot instead of 1 like they do in Eretz Israel. Now, this turns out to not be the answer, but it's a good question. Even Purim, they ask, why is there not 2 days of Purim? And even Yom Kippur, they ask, why is there not 2 days of Yom Kippur? So we're not going to get an answer from the halachic world on this. We're going to get an answer from the Hashkafa. So let's go into the Hashkafa. The Chida explains that the Greeks at that time were fighting a spiritual war against us. Their spiritual war was waged against a very particular religious point. They didn't want us to stop being religious, believe it or not. They even believed in God themselves. They just believed that our relationship with God had something wrong with it. Now let me explain by looking at the mitzvot. The Chida explains there were 3 mitzvahs that they tried to abolish. The first was Shabbat, the second was Chodesh, and the third was Milah. They were saying, you know, you Jews, you always say that you're banim lamakom, you're the children of God. Firstly, everybody's children of God, and we agree with that, yes, everybody's children of God. But they say, secondly, but that's just a metaphor. We're not really children of God. You're taking it too seriously. You can't be children of the exalted, immovable mover. When did he move to have you? You got to move to have children, and he doesn't move. So you're being irrational. You're trying to be super rational, but we don't even believe in that. So enough now. Take this ox, the Midrash says, take off his horn, write on it, we have no share in the God of Israel. You can believe in him, but don't say you've got a share in him like you're his children, his inheritors, that you can have any form of actual connection with him. Yes, he can make miracles. Okay, but they're miracles. You don't need to get excited about a miracle. Just like a dog barks, a God does a miracle. Lahavdil. They're wrong, right? But how exactly are they wrong? They're wrong because of what the Maccabees did once they came to the Beit HaMikdash after the war. Remember, there is such a thing as Tuma Hutra D'Tzibor. You don't have to use pure oil if it's a tircha for the tzibor. You can't light the menorah, you haven't got enough time. The whole tzibor of Klal Yisrael is waiting for you to light this and do this miracle. So Hashem makes a provision. You can use impure oil if that's all you got. The Maccabi said we don't want to do that. That is just going to prove the Greeks right. They're trying to say that we don't have a special relationship with you. We're just like servants and a master. Servants say, okay, I haven't got enough oil, so I'm going to use impure oil. He can't punish me. He said I could if I have to. We said we don't want to be a servant. We want to be children. Children want to give their father only the best. And that's what we wanted. We're not going to use impure oil. That breaks our heart. We don't want to do that. We want to give our father only the best. And if we can't give him the best, then we don't ask me to even consider that scenario. Because then they'd have to be considering things like relying on a miracle instead of on a heta. And you have to rely on a heta instead of a miracle, right? They didn't do that. And that created a big tumult in Shemaim. Rabbi Zvi Friedman's got a book called Heaven Exposed, and in it he's got a chapter called The Menorah Files. You can actually find it online. Look in the description. I'll link to it. Read the whole thing. He makes this story, which is plausible, that they had a big meeting in Shemaim. How are we going to produce this miracle? Hashem has created a job request for the angels. I want a miracle. And it has to fulfill all these criteria. It has to be 8 days of miracle, not 7. It has to be Mida Keneged Mida to reward the beyond the letter of the law devotion of the Maccabees. And it has to be halachically sound. We're not going to compromise any of the halachas of lighting the menorah, including chumras, including hidurim. So how are we going to do it? The first set of angels said, I know, let's energize the oil. So instead of burning at the normal rate, it burns very, very slowly and ends up lasting for 8 days. Now, that does fulfill the requirement of there being a miracle every day, but it doesn't fulfill the halacha of having to be filled to the top every day because it didn't finish the day before. So what about creating oil that replenishes itself miraculously like the jugs of the Shunammite woman? Well, unfortunately, you can't do that either because the halacha says that it has to be from pressed olives. And this is not pressed olives, this is pressed ex nihilo. You can't make oil from ex nihilo, then you're not fulfilling the halacha properly. And then another proposal about, well, how about we create this fire that doesn't consume any oil, like the burning bush? And that was also rejected for the same reason. So you have to understand that they realized that it's not possible to fulfill all these three requirements. And just like the Maccabi said, I don't care, we're going to do it anyway, Hashem said, I don't care, I'm going to do it anyway. I'm going to step in now, and I'm going to make the miracle. That means this miracle is not just beyond nature, but it's even beyond the spiritual cosmos. It's beyond ruchniut. It's going to come from Hashem's divine omnipotence, where paradoxes mean nothing, where anything can happen, even something that doesn't make sense. And now you can understand what the Greeks hated about this so much. The Greeks loved their rationality. They loved things to make sense. They loved things to be masuda, to be logical. So if you want a God who's miraculous, that makes sense to me. Yes, God makes miracles. If you want a God that's going to make miracles within nature, like the Rambam, I like that too, yeah? The Rambam was very, very well accepted by people who are fans of Greek philosophy. But you want to have something that tries to synthesize both. It has to be halachic and it has to be physically sound, but also miracle at the same time. Something from nothing, but not something from nothing. Consuming, but not consuming. That's impossible. We don't want something like that. Just like we don't want you to say that you're really Hashem's children. And Hashem said, no, my relationship with my children goes beyond anything. And by the way, I just want to add, this is my own little point. The Jewish idea of life in general is like this. We believe that you should always be optimistic about what is good in life. Don't say, oh, I'm not going to be able to find a wife unless I compromise because blah, 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 blah. You want to, like women nowadays, they don't, so therefore I have to, this ideal picture of soulmates is very nice, but I can't rely on that. That's so illogical. I'm not going to be a fool. I can't believe in that now. I'm going to go and do things rationally. Now, don't get me wrong. We do have a very strong impetus to do things rationally. That's your hishtadlut, as we put it. But just like Shah Bitachon says, the hishtadlut is not the thing that produces the result. Hashem is the one that produces the result. The hishtadlut is just like a key to open the door. But what's inside that door has got nothing to do with our hishtadlut. Our hishtadlut is literally just doing the bare minimum requirement, So if you want to believe in soulmates, do your hishtadlut, but don't give up on it in your heart. Believe that life can be better. Believe that the world is a good place, even if it doesn't look that way, and that's illogical for whatever reason. This is very, very important. A Jew always believes that he's optimistic about the goodness of life. Rabbi Meir said in the halachic discussion about whether we are children of Hashem always or only when we're good. He's the ruling halachic authority, i.e. the halacha goes with what he said, which is we're always Hashem's children. There's a very famous prayer that we make in Slichot, which is Eloka de Rabbi Meir aneni. The God of Rabbi Meir, answer me. The Maharsha says that we're not talking about Rabbi Meir specifically. We are, but we're also saying a drush. Meir means to illuminate. We're talking about the illumination of the miracle of the Chanuka candles. The God of the miracle of the Chanuka candles, the God who can answer me within physics, beyond physics, and beyond everything. All three of those are possible for our God. Because our relationship comes from Him, like Rabbi Meir says, Banim l'makom, children of Hashem, answer me. Meaning, no matter what the problem is, whether it requires a miracle, whether it doesn't require a miracle, whether it requires, what I want requires a bending of halacha, Hashem can still do it without bending halacha. You can always pray to Hashem for what you need, and that is one of the most important mitzvahs in the whole Torah. There is a specific de'oraita mitzvah that if you have a need, you turn to your Father in heaven. And that is what's called avoda. That is divine service. So yes, we are his servants and we're his children, and there is no paradox. We have both of those qualities in our relationship with him. And so may I give everybody a bracha that their Chanuka should be illuminated with the bright light of the knowledge that the miracles that occur in your life, that will occur in your life, come from your miraculous relationship with Hamakom, with Hashem, as his children. And as paradoxical as that may sound, it is more true than you can possibly imagine. Chag Urim Sameach.